Welcome to this conversation on democracy from the campus of Washington and Jefferson College. Today we're talking with Dr. Fred Johnson, a professor of history at Hope College, an author of numerous articles and several books, and an expert on American history and particularly the history of the Black experience in America. Dr. Johnson was with us today for our 5th annual Symposium on Democracy. Fred, welcome to W&J.
Good to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, you just completed a session where you spoke to a very large audience about your perspective on our democracy and the way that we historically have accommodated within that democracy very undemocratic behavior that you describe as mob violence or tyrannical behavior. Could you just give us a summary of that and also maybe give us a couple of examples of what you mean?
Sure. Starting out the presentation talking about how even from the Constitutional Convention, compromises were made on the aspirations of liberty and freedom and opportunity by enshrining in law a system of slavery which, no matter how you cast it, it was a system of tyranny, oppression, and subjugation. There's a natural dissonance when you're trying to create a republic that values individual freedom, rights, and liberty, but at the same time you make room for a system that's built on tyranny and denial of all those same things. At some point, that dissonance is going to come in conflict with itself. It produced a civil war. It produced a situation of Reconstruction that spilled over into the 20th century, where acts of mob violence, particularly when it came to lynching, where whole communities would come out to see people being murdered, and murder sometimes where people were not held accountable, which is a failure of legislation, it's a failure of law, it's a failure of individual civil liberties and a whole range of other things. That means that your democracy, for however well it's functioning, is dysfunctional in a very fundamental way. And when people are not being held accountable for that, there's no telling what else you're opening yourself up to for those anti-democratic forces that exist both outside of and within the United States.
And you described that as the danger of no consequences.
That's right, a culture of no consequences.
Yeah.
And a culture of no consequences, like the example I gave during the talk was the lynching of A. Smith and Tommy Shipp in Marion, Indiana, on August 7, 1930, where you have the lynching that takes place on the tree outside the courthouse. Now, the Hall of Justice, where people are supposed to go and get tried and have a jury of their peers and all the rest of that, and then there's a lynching outside there, and then a mob of people gathers together to take a picture, and they're all looking to the eye of the camera. Whatever else can be said at that moment, the people looking to the eye of the camera, the fact that they're looking with complete confidence that no one's going to hold them accountable, says something about the law, humanity, justice, the Constitution, and a whole range of other things in that society at that time. And even in our own time, when people commit acts and feel that they're entitled to do that, to take someone's life, and feel surprised when they're being held accountable, that says something is not operating functionally in our society where people think they can do that and get away with it.
Some may hear those examples and imagine that this is about sort of ancient history and that today there really are consequences, that somehow we've become a better nation or a place where people are held more accountable. What would be your response to that?
Well, we opened the talk about January 6, 2021, and the people that were there that morning and that went through all of that and did all of that, I think that a lot of people are surprised that they're being held accountable. That somehow you can't just assault the House of the national legislature where laws are made. The Senate is called the world's greatest deliberative body, and it was under assault that day. We had people that are trying to reinterpret that moment as normal political discourse. Well, that's not what happened. And it takes a willful denial of reality and a compromising of one's understanding what democracy is to call it anything other than what it was. The other part, too, it reaches back. People have said that, well, how's that so different than what some people are talking about? What about the protests that have been going on during the pandemic? Let me make it real simple. I'm not in favor of any kind of protest where people descend into mob violence. We have a tradition of peaceful protest in the United States. That's what the Civil Rights Movement was built upon, especially the part that Dr. King was leading. But when violence becomes violence, it's violent no matter who's doing it. So it's either consequences for everybody or not allowable for anybody. There's no two ways about it. Because I know that some people sometimes think that only certain communities get a pass. No community should get a pass, particularly when it's a dagger being held at the throat of this democracy.
I was struck by how riveted our students were during the presentation. Clearly, they were learning. They also were really engaged with you and with what you were sharing with them. What advice do you have for college students today?
Some of the students were asking, well, what, after the Q&A, well, what can they do? And how can we get out of this, is democracy really the answer anymore? And I said to one of them, I said, I quoted Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill, I believe, said, democracy is the worst form of government ever invented, except for all the others. So we work with what we have. And it turns out that what we have is still a pretty good model, a Republican democracy. We're talking about thousands of years of human existence where the standard rule was a monarch or a potentate or some type of central authority where they were all that mattered and the people were secondary or tertiary thoughts. And because we refocused the lens on that to focus on the people, individual rights and liberties and so forth and opportunity, we continue doing that. So we need to, first off, reestablish a love affair with democracy. That means learning about how it originated, learning how it functions, and then doing more than bellyaching and complaining about it, getting involved. I told one student, it's real fun, even sexy, to be out there in the protest and throwing eggs at the building and talking about what you want done right now. The harder part is going to school, getting educated, getting a job, getting qualified, and then earning a seat at the table, where if you want to make effective, lasting change, you can do it in that venue. You throw an egg at the building, sure, it gets the cycle of the news program for a moment, for one news cycle. Then someone comes along with a power washer, washes the building, it's forgotten the next day. If you want, lasting change, you have to be willing to participate and qualified to participate. That takes work and time. That's how democracy changes for the better.
Well, one of my takeaways today was your concluding remark that whatever issue may be important to you, whatever it is that you may wish to protest about or change that you would like to try to effect, it doesn't matter if we lose the democracy.
That's right. I have, for a lot of reasons, because I'm a Civil War historian, and as you point out, I have a specialty in Africa and the history of race relations in America. But after what happened on January 6, 2021, I realized that what we're up against, I thought that day about all the days that I was a undergrad at Bowie State College, now University in Maryland. I used to go downtown to the National Archives, and I would come up out of the subway and walk to the archives building. There was an inscription on the side of the building that said, "The price of freedom is eternal vigilance." We have not been as vigilant as we need to be. And I know that when I joined the military, you take an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We have domestic actors right now who are trying to upset this democracy, trying to diminish it, trying to derail it. And my emphasis is that if this goes away, it doesn't matter what your issue is, climate change, gender issues, who can marry who, whatever issue it is, that's all off the table, because if the people who are trying to do this thing in get in charge, the pet projects that people have that keep us at each other's throat, it's going to become all irrelevant because they're not interested in that anyway. So the first and primary objective has got to be maintaining the Republican democracy. That's what I'm talking about most of these days.
Well, as an old friend, I'm just really grateful that you took time to come and spend this period of our calendar year with us. It's an important time for us on our calendar. The Symposium on Democracy goes all the way back to it sort of traces back to the founding mission of our college. We bring our students together in the symposium so that they can think about their roles and responsibilities as citizens with the understanding, as the founders of our college and the founders of our nation had, that this democracy requires, as you say, vigilance, and it requires constant nurture and care by every succeeding generation, and we're committed to making sure that W&J students are not only committed to that, but equipped to do that very important work in the places where they find themselves. But thank you for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
We've been speaking with Fred Johnson, one of our plenary speakers today at the 5th Annual Symposium on Democracy at Washington and Jefferson College.